American TESOL presents Free Friday webinars. Every Friday we have a webinar about this time. And we talk about a different topic. We have over 200 presentations that you can see on video. You can also download the slides and they're all free. So that's really incredible. You can get a certificate of attendance, or if you're in the ESL Tech course from American TESOL, you can get a certification for teaching with technology with the emphasis in TESOL. We emphasize TESOL, but anyone can come and learn a lot, because I've actually been a part of American TESOL for 3 years now. And when I started teaching, I had to integrate technology in the US. And so I had to teach many different courses like math, science for English language learners. So you can still get something out of each webinar, because I really have taught so many different subjects, probably at least 30 or 40 different subjects. So you'll definitely be able to find something that you'll learn from each one. My specialty is technology, and so we're doing a series right now on technology, and we're doing a course. It's actually an ongoing course. And last week I was in Istanbul, but this week I'm back home in Texas. Yay! You can find all the resources if you go to the Pearl Tree. And the last week we talked about audio projects, but this week we're talking about video projects, because video is very important for language learners especially, but it's also something that is very engaging and meaningful for students. So if you have something like, for example, students that are unmotivated. I remember two teachers were telling me that they had some students in the summer and they had to go to summer camp and learn English, and they were in Spain, and the teenagers didn't do anything. They didn't want to do anything because their parents had basically made them go to this different English camp. So what they did was they decided to integrate videos. They gave them flip cameras, and all of a sudden, the students were engaged. They started creating videos for the different field trips. They started doing news reports. So there was a lot of learning and language learning that went into this. And so I think video is one of those, when you create video projects with students, it's one of the most engaging ways to really get students uh, to see whatever they're studying. And you can do it for math, science, you can do it for history. There are tons of video projects. Actually, there are probably hundreds of video projects that you can do. Some of my favorite that I've actually put lesson plans inside the Pearl Tree of bookmarks happens to be once, and there are examples there. When you go into the Pearl Trees, you'll see different examples from teachers worldwide. These are actually my students that I did video with, and this was a 45-minute lesson, and we did it in Slovenia. And their goal was to create a they had to actually invent an app, and then they had to create a video that would show the prototype of that app, like what that app actually did. So they really enjoyed this. It was very short. It was only a 30-second or less video. And I'll tell you why. Why you might want to do really short videos with your language learners. Not only because of the language, but also because when you're uploading videos, if you have many different students, and in this particular one I had 80 students, so I grouped them. And if you have about, even grouping them in 4, you still have 20 videos. And if you have 20 videos, then, and they're 5 minutes, it would be, you would have to have the fastest bandwidth um, that there is to be able to really upload all of those so they could see it or else you have to rely on the student to upload the video at home. So these are things to consider when you're doing video projects. There's many different types of video projects that I list here. And one of the favorite ones that I have is actually a silent film. And the reason why I like silent films is because if you remember Charlie Chaplin, then you'll remember how many times with silent films you write the dialogue in the next slide. So, and usually it's dialogue that's really part of a context. It's telling the story. So it's not saying this is what happened, but it's exclamations or a word or two or three words. And I think that's really great for language learners if you do a silent film, because with silent films, you're able to not have too much um, overwhelming language for language learners. So I think you should try a silent film, and it's a lot of fun. There's actually a process involved in video storytelling projects, and in video projects in general that I sort of have come up with. So I think this is the most effective way that I've taught it. And I've taught in 28 different countries. And I've also trained teachers in those countries. And when I take on a lesson, like for example, many teachers will say, let us see what this looks like in the classroom integrating technology. And I usually do a video because I think it's really effective. It's a great way to show the students language in a context, but also I can usually get this done within a 45-minute lesson. So even if there are 80 students, I've had 800 teachers create videos before too. That wasn't ideal, but it can be done. So when you do this, this is a process that I've gone through, and I think it works really well. Yeah, I know. Brainstorming. Give them time to be able to come up with the characters, and we'll talk more about brainstorming in a bit. There's different types of brainstorming they'll do throughout their creation of a video. So once you decide the project, have them brainstorm, and you can time it. I usually do about 2 minutes to 3 minutes of brainstorming, and if it's something a little bit more complicated, then I'll do up to 5 minutes. But usually students, if you have a timer, it really works well into flowing into the next part of the lesson plan. The next part is the research, or them creating props or drawings or whatever is necessary for them to be able to create that video. So for example, if you're teaching language learners and you're teaching them um, you want them to focus on restaurant language, then they would go and they would have to do research on this. And so you can take them somewhere else. You can definitely take them to the library. You can give them menus. That's all part of the research stage, the stage where they learn what it is about the topic. So I think that that's really important. It's important for them to have time to storyboard, and I think a lot of teachers, language teachers, don't realize the importance of storyboarding and don't have many templates. So I'm going to share with you a free one. Yay! Record it, edit it, remix it, and broadcast it. So we're going to go over these different types of stages so you can get an example. But if you get my book, gum.co/learn2go, um, and you go to there, it's really inexpensive, but you can find lesson plan. One of the lesson plans is Blockbuster Books, where they do a book preview. They have to suggest what will be the next book that becomes a big movie hit, because now if you go in the summer, you'll see that there are a lot of books that become movies, like Lord of the Rings. You have also The Hunger Games, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. All of those are books, and then they're made into movies. So Your students get to think about different books that they enjoy and how they would make that into a movie, and then they just create the trailer, because we want short videos, remember. So you can find rubrics as well in my book. um, I'll share with you some other types of assessment for that as well. But one of the things that I would recommend is either doing a class movie or doing in groups of four or in pairs, because what happens is if you have one student who just creates a video, then you more than likely will have to get them to do a web tool, and we'll talk about web tools. But if you're doing a movie or a big project like that, then it really is great for students to be able to work in groups to create this movie, because then they can see how they really their strengths and their weaknesses, but also how they can work together with all their strengths and really shine in a project. And Learning to Go has those types of group, so you can really learn about the different types of grouping and how to give roles, duties, and responsibilities. um, Sorry, I have to pause a bit because Roscoe's here, the little pug. Uh, when we So these are actually my students. They're working. You notice how we use technology, but we also use their drawings, their own props as well. So I give students the freedom to decide how they're going to create their movie. And I think it's really important to have a good balance of technology, but also to have that balance of things that are produced by them. So if it's a drawing, they can do that with pencil and paper, and that's fine. So these are some of the different roles that your students can take on. Some students may not want to act in the film. They mean and acting doesn't mean that they actually come out and they're um, showing their faces, because there are great Web 2.0 tools out there that really help your students to shine with avatars. And so sometimes students are a lot more comfortable being an avatar and coming out in the movie that way, or a video project. One of the students can be responsible for creating the props, one can draw, some can be the actors, some can choose the music, some can be in charge of recording, editing, and costumes. And there's many, many more different, depending on your project, then it'll decide what roles and responsibilities are needed. But your students do need the time to be able to talk to each other and be able to say, hey, this is the due date when we need you to bring these props, or who's going to volunteer to be the editor, who's going to volunteer to upload the project, who's going to volunteer to record it, so who's going to volunteer to act in the project. So all of these are really important when you're creating a video project. And then, of course, there's there's different types of brainstorming, but there's also the brainstorming where you have to create the script for the video, or decide how it'll transition, the characters, the scene, and so forth. So there are many things they can do. If they're doing a digital storytelling video, then they can put the story, the title, but then they have to decide who are the actors going to be, the characters, the actors. What is the plot? What is the theme, the setting, the type, and the materials? If you're doing, for example, history, then you can have them research the 1920s, for example, if they're doing something about flappers or um, history back then. And what they can do is they have to go and they have to visually see what that time period looked like, how they were dressed, how they spoke, what were some of the what would they drink, what would they have with them, what were the most popular commercial items back then. So and Peggy asked a very good question. Peggy George, who's awesome and always tweets the links for the presentation. But she says, do you have to teach all of those steps separately? I think the first time that you go over this, depending on the age group, you may have to definitely get them to think about these different elements. But usually I don't. Usually I let them kind of figure it out as they go on, because I would suggest doing more than one video project. But a lot of times students, if they've read, they kind of know all of these elements, except for maybe theme and maybe the type of story, the genre and theme. I think you do have to teach that. And maybe what makes a good plot. So I think it's really important to be able to do that. So if you go to the Pearl Trees, you'll be able to see a storyboard that you can have your students use. It's through Google. And I think that it's really great because Google Docs, when you use Google Docs, your students are able to download it as a Word, a document, a PDF, or they can sign up for Google Docs for free, and they can go and they can create the storyboard there. So you can see an example from one of my students who just created a storyboard, and she's saying what kind of movie. It's a stop motion. What's the genre? Romance. And briefly describing what the movie is about: two people, daily routines, and big dreams. Now, these were English language learners, so this, you can always add a checklist of vocabulary that they should include, or grammar that they should focus on. That can be part of the video storytelling project. Another place that I really like is Story Keepers. This is by Bernadine. Oh, I forget her name all the time. Porter, and she's really incredible. She has this wiki that has many different templates and steps on how to really create great videos and digital storytelling projects in general. But I think that her checklists are amazing, and so you can go visit the site and you'll find many resources and ways to really integrate digital storytelling with your students. So now we go into the actual production, and you can really see the math and the science behind creating a video. So if you're teaching for CLIL, Content Language Integrated Learning, or if you're teaching STEM, then which is science, technology, engineering, math for language learners, or even in general, then you can have your students really get into the math and science behind producing a good video. And one of these elements is the rule of thirds. So most video, when you create a video, most video producers will tell you about this rule of thirds. And what it is basically you have this grid. And the great thing is, if you use Instagram, that grid is automatically put on when you are recording. So that's really a great part of that app. But when you go to the rule of thirds, what it's telling you is that you want to center your main object within these different frames, and that will create a good video. That's how to, so you're looking at the area, you're looking at the size, and you're looking at also the focus, the zooming in, and there's other elements as well. But I think one of the best things to do is, depending on what you have, and the great thing about creating a video is you don't have to have a mobile device. It's great if you do, because you can use different apps. But the other great part of it is you can use a flip camera, you can use digital cameras, You can use a big giant video camera. As long as it records a video, then that's what's important. But I think it's really important that you review your camera settings and your students as well. If they review the settings, then they can see you can teach math and science this way as well. You can talk about white balance, resolution, and while you're discussing these things with your students and getting them, one of the best things to do is just get them to play with it. Get them to go to the settings and record different types of videos playing with those settings. And that's one of the best ways to really dive in there. You don't have to be an expert at recording videos, but you can learn along with your students, and you can make it to where they make really great videos because they know the settings. And when they know the settings, then they can also do all of these different projects even without the internet. But if they do have the ability to download apps, then I would recommend using web tools and apps, because that'll make this so much easier. You'll be able to do this very, very quickly. And there is, as Francisco mentioned in the chat box, Animoto, which is one of the best ways to create a video, to make a really great video. But there's also other web tools and apps too, like Instagram or Vine. Now, Vine, we have webinars that focus on Instagram and Vine. I prefer Instagram because now Vine, you have to be 17 years old. But these are some of the tools that I recommend. Animoto is great, so is Magisto. But my students always love Powtoon. So if you can, Powtoon.com, I don't believe they have an app. It's only on the web, I believe, for now. GoAnimate.com. If you want to have more than one person or one student talking, then you can use GoAnimate, and they have different settings and scene selections. The great thing about GoAnimate is, and Powtoon and all of these web tools, is they have the storyboarding within it. So the storyboarding, it looks like this, and what it does is it has it to where the students have to really think about the transition and the plot, and you can talk about that with them, but at the same time, within the platform they're creating. All of these tools are free, by the way, so that's always great because teachers don't have a lot of money. And then there's different apps that you can use as well. So there's iMovie. iMovie allows you to edit a video. So if you are doing something where you need to edit a video, then iMovie is great for that. So for example, if you're using sound special effects, there are apps to create great special effects, but then you have to add that special effect to the movie. So what you would have to do is use iMovie or Windows Media Maker if you're a movie maker, to include those different elements within your video, to piece them together. Or you might want to cut some parts, or you may want to add filters. A YouTube editor as well will do this. It's a little clunky. You can do it online. And this is a great way to add different types of filters and everything with YouTube editor. But it does take some time, and if you have many different students on using a computer lab, you have to make sure that they have good bandwidth so they can be able to edit their videos. But you also are able to have movies with Instagram and Vine. And the great thing about Instagram is it's only 15 seconds. So I have found that Instagram uploads pretty quickly compared to other types of video creation apps. There's TouchCast. TouchCast has a green screen, and TouchCast will allow you to create different types of newscasts. It's good for interviews. It's good for screen tutorials. Educreations is another tool or app that you can use. It's a web tool and app, but it's only for iOS. But it's great for doing screen capturing. It's good for animating different. You can add different elements. It's a 9-minute video, and you can edit it as well. And then if you want to add free, these are free mobile apps for adding special effects. So your students can do really cool things like they can include bombings, or they can have different types of dinosaurs, or they can have different type like creatures that come, or they can do some really cool Hollywood effects with these free apps. And so they're only about 6 seconds. So it's really exciting, and your students will love it. Just like Peggy said, they'll just love it. And then there's more apps. But I don't want to spend the whole time talking about apps, because there are literally 50 or more apps that are free for creating awesome videos, especially if you have an iOS device. You have an iPhone, an iPod, an iPad. Any of these you can use. But you can also go to my Symbaloo, and in my Symbaloo, I have many of these as well. So some things to think about before we wrap this up. What location? Your students can think about the location. They have to think about the lighting. So why is location important? Location is important because of the context, but also it's important because of the noise. I let my students go around the school, and I haven't had problems with that. I haven't had problems where students have gone places they're not supposed to yet. But this is something that you may have to talk with your students, like where they can go and where they're not supposed to go. But the reason why they go around the school is because the noise. If you want to record a video without having someone else's video as a part of it, then you you can't do all of that within the classroom. So I usually give them about 10 minutes, and then I tell them, okay, in 10 minutes, you have to come back, and then you can finish your video later. And that's usually their homework or something that they work on after they leave the class. You can add a lot of different types of pictures or videos into your video. You can do that by adding Creative Commons, and it's important that you attribute. It's really important that you use sound and music and pictures and even video clips and give proper attribution. Sometimes you can have an app like GoAnimate or Magisto or Animoto, and they'll give you many different types of music and to choose from. They have a library, and that's really one added benefit of using something like a Web 2.0 tool that has a library, because then you don't have to worry about giving attribution. They take care of that for you. And where do we host it? Well, there's different places that you can showcase your videos, because your students will always want to see their videos and their peers' videos as well. And so I would recommend having a hosting party, but where you can have where you show everything, but you can have it on YouTube, SchoolTube, Vimeo. You can embed this on a site. That you can create a class channel on YouTube. You can have them upload their videos or send them to you via Bluetooth or email. Host a viewing party. You can invite parents. You can invite the entire school. Or you can do something as well. If you have, for example, you can use different types of bookmarking tools such as Pinterest. Pinterest is great for showing videos. So is educlepper.net. So all of these are really good places to host all the viewings. The great thing about Pinterest, if you happen to use Pinterest, is that when you watch the videos, you can also add comments on them. And of course, you can find many YouTube tools. And if you go to this bit.ly YouTube tools, and that's actually my Pinterest of YouTube tools that you can teach with. And you can find all of these resources today if you go to this Pearl Tree. And that's it. Yay! We did all that within 30 minutes. And there's so much more when it comes to teaching with video. These are the places that you can reach me or get your certificates, or accomplish your task this week, which is creating a storyboard, I believe. So you'll get to work with storyboards if you're part of the ESL Tech course. And if you you'll be able to see the different types of ways that students can create videos. So if you go to the Pearl Tree, you'll see lots and lots of examples